Echoes of Wisdom has taught me anything, it's that these mischievous swamp-living critters are some of Zelda's best. From business acumen to unyielding rage, and every sticky, sweet interaction in between. Here's the complete compendium of the Deku Scrubs. The Deku Scrubs' relationship with the Zelda franchise got off to a brambly start in Ocarina of Time. They first appear as enemies infecting the inside of the Great Deku Tree, with their allegiances firmly in the corner of the parasitic Queen Doma. The official Ocarina of Time Player's Guide describes them as weeds that came under the curse's power, mutating into craven flora. If approached, they remain hidden underground. However, at a distance, their treachery unravels almost immediately, thanks to the slightest pushback from our fairy boy's wooden shield, and their extreme sense of self-preservation, causing them to reveal the secret to Queen Goma's chamber, and with their betrayal complete, her eventual slaughter. Mad Scrubs, stronger and aggressive Deku variants, are found within the Sacred Forest Meadow as young Link, and the Tainted Kakiri Forest as adult Link. Another variant, the Business Scrub, can be found in the Lost Woods, caves, holes, and even certain dungeons, where upon defeat they offer Link access to their wares, which, though sometimes useful, are often common items at prices akin to highway robbery. An amicable Deku Scrub lives in the Lost Woods as well, granting Link a bigger bullet bag if he thrice hits a target perfectly. A more mercurial bunch inhabit the forest stage, where they, depending on the mask Link wears, dole out rewards, aggression, or nothing at all. Though wearing the skull mask will trigger what can only be described as a spasmodic summoning of their cult leader, a large Deku who comments on Link's uncanny resemblance to their sacred forest totem, and, chanting the magic words, rewards Link with a Deku Stick upgrade. They appeal to this giant Deku regardless of the mask, but never with such gusto. Ocarina's direct sequel, Majora's Mask, expanded the Deku lore exponentially. Most notably, in another spasmodic summoning with a tinge of fever dream, Link becomes a Deku yoinked from the heartwood of a poor Deku boy, law of equivalent exchange and all, where he spits bubbles, rockets out of flowers, and spins on land and water. The first 3-day cycle is spent as a Deku, where Deku Link learns he is weak to both water and fire. Whether these are common characteristics of all Dekus or just Link is murky. However, the layout of the southern swamps suggests these are not abilities unique to Link. Ultimately, thanks to the powers of the Song of Healing, Link obtains the Deku Mask and can transform into a Deku Scrub and thus utilize these abilities at will. He traverses the aforementioned southern swamp, home to the Deku Palace, the vibrantly adorned royal abode not of enemies, but of a race similar to the Goron or Zora, though severely leery of outsiders, but keen on public execution. Link gets a first-hand look into the unhinged anti-monkey monarchical machinations of the Deku King and his court, bound by their lineage to guard the Woodfall Temple. Here Link also meets the level-headed Deku Butler, and learns of the swamp's poisoning allegedly by our little monkey friend after he allegedly kidnapped the Deku Princess. By stealthily navigating the Deku Palace's sophisticated gardening operations, complete with a series of free-floating platforms, Link can learn the Sonata of Awakening, make his wooded way to Woodfall, encounter more Mad Scrubs, raise Woodfall from its swampy depths, conquer the temple and its boss, restore the contaminated water, stow the princess in a bottle, and unleash her rage upon her father and his subjects.
I'll have no fury like a Deku princess overprotected.
The king then turns a new leaf and sets the monkey free. Relieved by the princess's safe return, the Deku Butler urges Link to follow him to the Deku Shrine, where winning a race rewards the Mask of Sense. One of Zelda's darkest moments also occurs where the Deku Butler is reminded of races with his son, and all but confirms this Deku scene at the beginning of the game to be his dead son. I've abandoned my boy! The gameplay mechanics of the Deku Palace and Woodfall Temple are once again explored in the Deku Dungeon on the moon. Branching off the main story, in Clocktown we once again run into a business scrub who, in exchange for a moon's tear, sets off a side quest scramble across all of Termina, eventually yielding 6 pieces of heart. North Clocktown is home to the Deku Scrub Playground, a platforming challenge that increases in difficulty daily. If Link breaks the record for all 3 days, he nabs a piece of heart. In Blink and You Might Miss It news, Madame Aroma makes mention of the Deku Elementary School and a potential teacher, suggestive of what could only be a renowned schooling system. And though not seen anywhere in-game, perhaps the model for future schools across Termina and beyond. If I may go out on a limb here, Majora's Mask is the pinnacle of Deku lore, featuring some of the best Deku designs in the franchise. With those heavyweights of Deku lore behind us, a general note on Deku Scrubs. While the word Deku is a specific reference to this species, it is also shared with many plant-related creatures and items. The great Deku tree and his sprouty offspring, Deku Babas, Deku seeds, sticks, shields, flowers, and Ds. A Japanese kanji Deku means wooden doll or puppet, which perhaps best describes this race of mangrove-like beings more than any of those other creatures or items. An additional fun fact, during the development of Ocarina of Time, Deku Scrubs were called hobbits, which would have fit nicely with the elven and dwarven traits of the Zora and Goron respectively, but the name seems better suited to the eternally small Kokiri. The Dekus make a species-specific noise, P, similar to the Goron's Goro, and while it isn't translated through the actual text in many games, they still make the noises in-game. Anywho, after such a rich crop of lore in Zelda's first two 3D games, Deku growth became a bit stunted in the later releases. In the Oracle games, business scrubs appear in a handful of locations across Holodrum and Labrynna, a population of which lives in the aptly named Deku Forest in Labrynna's distant past, trading common items with Link, although Oracle of Seasons does contain hostile Deku Scrubs, who are defeated in similar fashion to their 3D counterparts. Link in games reveals the Deku's apparent infatuation with pop tunes, sharing the Deku secret song Love the Seed. In another Oracle of Seasons musical twist, at the end of a long trading quest, a Deku Scrub will reveal the location of an important item, which I won't spoil here. If you haven't played the Oracle games, subscribe to the channel and play them. They're awesome. In Four Swords Adventures, the Dekus are awakened when Ganon turns the forest into the Lost Woods, and call him king. In a similarly self-interested way as befits their nature, they look forward to the woods' expansion, so that they may freely roam, although underground passages convey them to frozen Hyrule, where they engage in terrapin hockey. Similar to the transformation of children and adults into Skull Kids and Stelphos respectively, the Deku Scrubs make clear that those lost in the woods become Deku Scrubs themselves. Minish Cap contains only business scrubs up to their usual business dealings. What follows is what I call the dark days of Deku Drought, where there is no sign of these little Sylvan instigators in any mainline games from Minish Cap in 2005 until Triforce Heroes in 2015, where it introduces the enemy Totem Dekus, large column-like Dekus only vulnerable at their heads, and similarly obstinate to their Ocarina of Time counterparts if approached too closely. Deku Scrubs again go missing in the era of the Wilds games, perhaps made redundant by similar woodland creatures like Koroks or funnel-mouth spitters like Octoroks. Enter Echoes of Wisdom, where the Deku Scrubs once again call a swamp their home, the Faron Wetlands within which lies Scrubton. Its inhabitants, who are distinguished by their unique head growths, have an elevated sense of themselves as evidenced by the contents of their monuments, as well as their apparent self-awareness in regards to their place in the Zelda franchise's species tier list. Though they retain traditional characteristics like their strong in-group preference, their typically capricious nature is initially overpowered by their nonchalance vis-a-vis the rifts that have literally ripped portions of the region into another dimension. Instead, the Scrubs are way more invested in the tasty spiderweb cotton candy pouring from these rifts. But their volatility returns once Zelda and Tri restore the rifts, causing the Deku Scrubs to imprison them, inadvertently leaving her the Deku Key and creating a stealth section reminiscent of the Deku Palace from Majora's Mask. Blasu, who may be the first Deku with a proper name in a mainline game, gives Zelda her membership card to enter the Sweet Spot, the Faron Temple, which is then conquered along with its familiar Spider Queen. The fickle Scrubs offer a quick word of thanks before moving on to their next obsession provided by the business Scrubs. Their new venture? A delicious assortment of smoothie blends found in shops across Hyrule. And of course, there is also a Rift side quest with one of the cutest resolutions. Beyond the mainline games, spin-off games like Cadence of Hyrule feature ally and enemy Deku Scrubs, including Evis, who longs to be an adventurer but is uncertain of his chances given his lack of arms. The Deku Butler, King, and Princess are characters found in the Deku Village, as well as enemy designs in the Deku Village Shooting Gallery and the Symphony of the Mask DLC. In other media, specifically the Majora's Mask manga, though some Deku Palace story beats remain the same and others are drastically changed, we learn that the Deku Princess was in love with the Deku Butler's son, to whom Link bears a striking resemblance. The Deku Scrubs are a contradiction, former foes that since have become allies, paving the way for other enemies to follow in their footsteps. Emotionally volatile, opportunistic, prone to rashness, name callers, little assholes really. They are simultaneously bullies and lovable little sweethearts, who talk a big game but in the end want the same as all of us. Mercy when bested, protection for their families, and sweet treats, whether from spiderweb cotton candy or from their favorite scrubs in the whole wide wetlands. Thanks for watching.